Hello, everyone. I welcome you all to day two of Republic Day Forensics. This is for speech, which is original oratory. Now, before I go on with this slide, I want to recall and I want you all to tell me as to what is the structure of original oratory as we discussed yesterday. Can anyone tell me what's the first thing?
Introduction,
Yes. What's the second thing? Vachi?
Context.
Then what do you do after context? Quickly.
Body.
Body, yes. Then
conclusion,
no.
Then anecdotes or personal touch.
But I think what Nora said is actually right. So conclusion is technically the next part, but you if you want, you can also put anecdotes and stuff like that. But in terms of the order, yes, conclusion is the next part. What's after conclusion?
the closing statement.
Correct, yes. So let's move forward and start with how will you start preparing for your original oratory. There are 10 steps for preparing your original oratory speech. The first one is to research about the prompt or sub-theme given, which you will eventually get today. So what you need to do is there's an ocean of material and content available for that particular sub-theme. What you need to do is research about and read everything and anything about that particular theme. Now, the next thing that you would do is basically after you've read everything, you would identify the area of interest. Now, what is the area of interest particularly? Now, oftentimes than not, there's so much that you read. There is one part that you always recognize and love more than the other. That's what you have to do in the second part. So you need to figure out as to what you like. Why do you think that particular thing is more important or better than the other? Because I think it's very subjective, and I think something that you would like in that particular research area is not probably something that I would like, which means it's very subjective, and you should probably use that creative and subjectivity with yourself so that you can basically narrow down your research topic further. So the idea is that you first read everything and then you go forward and find out that one particular topic that you probably think is extremely amazing and you want to go forward and research, narrow down your research. So the third part then is to narrow down your research based on the area of interest that you identify in the second part. Now, after you've narrowed down the research, there are a couple of steps that you need to do here, right? So you first try to find out as to what is this topic, what is the impact of this topic, what caused this topic, and what are the effects of it. So there are three things, right? What led to this topic, what is this topic, and what's the outcome or what's the effect of it. So past, present, future, every single thing. So you basically need to explore every single thing about that particular topic. Now, this is again just research. Nobody's drafting anything, nobody's trying to cut short material, nothing. You're just researching, you're just reading stuff. The fourth part is to go ahead and analyze key issues and impacts of issue identified. Now, I think that for a particular topic that you identify, there could be n number of key issues and number of impacts. However, your job is not to identify and mention every single thing, like every single key issue. Your job is to identify what is the more important issue, what do you think is going to be the time benefit analysis for you. So you have very limited time, you can only focus on few parts of that particular topic, which is why you need to prioritize which is more important, what is the impact, and what you actually need to put in your speech. The fifth part then is to prepare a draft of the speech based on the structure. Now, you already have the structure. I want you to basically use it as a skeleton and then keep typing and adding stuff under each heading. For example, introduction, this is my one paragraph for introduction. For example, context, this is what I'm going to speak in context. Now, obviously, um, in whenever you're debating, you're probably using the terminologies and using signposting. For example, you're saying, I'm now this is my framing, or you go ahead and say this is the context. But I don't want you to actually do that in original oratory. So original oratory is more organic. It is supposed to be a structure, but you're not supposed to think like, I'm now going to move forward to my arguments. That's not how you do it. You organically move from one part to the other, which means you also have to have transitions and stuff. So what you need to do is first put paragraphs and place paragraphs under each heading. So introduction, context, body, argument 1, argument 2, argument 3, and then go forward with, let's say, this is the anecdote, wherever you want to place it. This is my conclusion, this is my closing statement. Now, what you need to do now is, after your rough draft is ready, you're going to go ahead and implement smooth transitions. Now, transitions are internal and external. External means when I'm jumping from introduction to context, or context to body. But internal means when I'm jumping from, let's say, argument 1 to argument 2, or when I'm jumping from one statement to the other. Now, I feel like we oftentimes not have so much to say that there's no good transition, and I'm probably saying A, and the next one I'm talking about B, whereas B is never related to A, right? So something trying to make sure that there's some link or connection from one part of your speech to the other is what I'm saying. So try to implement smooth transitions. Now, the basic idea of how you can actually have smooth transitions is to say that how does A leads to B, or how does A leads or relates to B. So you have to probably like, or how does A become a precursor to B. So something like a sequential story-like structure is something that people really love and appreciate. Now, the seventh step is to actually find out the tone of delivery. Now, what tone of delivery actually means is, for each part of your paragraph sentence, you probably have different tones of delivery. So sometimes you're going to be having high pitch, low pitch. Sometimes it's going to be like in terms of what emotion you're trying to show. Is it anger? Is it sadness? Is it empathy? Is it laughter and all of that? So this is what you're going to do as well. So you're going to find out what's the tone. And for your personal benefit, what you can actually do is also put what exactly is the tone of that particular line in your document. So what it looks like is probably comment and be like, this is the paragraph I'm going to be going high pitch, or this is the paragraph I'm going to pitch, but I'm going to be, let's say, I'm going to use, let's say, like lower tone in terms of showing like my sadness for that thing as well. So you're going to also make notes for that, because I think you practice, you learn, and then once you're by-hearted, and then your muscle memory is fixed for that emotion, it's just difficult to change it later, right? So I think if you figure it out in the very beginning, and if you align it to the way how you actually intended it to be, I think that's how it works perfectly. So then you're going to go ahead and remember the entire speech, time it. Now, after you're done timing it, you will know that you're either going overtime or less, like under time. So if it is under time, probably add more stuff. Now, the idea is, if let's say your speech is for 3 minutes, or if your speech is for 4 minutes, whatever it is, you can only be either 15 minutes under, 15 seconds under, and 15 seconds over, not more than that, not less than that. If it is either, you're going to get really bad marks for method. So even if your speech is amazing, judges are going to tank your score, which you don't want, right? Because at the end of the day, I think there are like people just like miss qualification just by like point 0.01 and 0.02. You don't want that, right? So the next one is to basically, again, remember your speech. Now, whenever you're remembering it and timing it, I think you should also record your speech and listen to it, because when you listen to it, you have more ability to recognize if something is repetitive. You don't want it to be repetitive, because you want a good qualitative content. Now, the next thing then is to understand what is the repetition and what's the extra material, and then remove it from your speech, make it exactly on time, and then your speech is ready. I highly recommend all of you all to by heart your speeches. And I also think that you should stand up while you're speaking, even if it is online, and even if, let's say, your judges are basically like sitting. I really appreciate if people stand up and give their speeches. So all the time I have judged original oratory from on NSTA. I've always seen these small kids standing up, fixing their laptop in such a way that I can completely see them. I can completely see their entire body language, which I think, in my opinion, is very persuasive and also very convincing. So I always give them good marks. So I think, and as opposed to somebody who's just sitting and I can just see this much of your body. And I think in original oratory, you have so much freedom in terms of you moving your hands, you moving your entire body. So I think you should probably use every single part of your body to express and persuade people. Now, this is how your speech is going to be ready. But moving forward to the body of and structure of your speeches. Now, for people who did not join yesterday, the structure of your speech has to be introduction, context, body, conclusion, closing statement. And then, just so you know, you can also add anecdotes or personal stories or in any of the parts of your speech. Now, the idea is that the speech time for juniors is 3 minutes, middle speech time is 4 minutes, and senior speech time is 6 minutes. So this is what you do in introduction. So the aim of introduction is two things. One, to get attention of the viewers, and two, to inform the viewers and audience as to what they should expect from your speech. It's similar to giving a case split to your audience. So a case split is what they can expect from your speech, but not exactly like that, because in debate it's more unorganic. Like you tell, this is what I'm going to do in my speech, firstly, secondly, thirdly. But in original origin, it's not that. It's in original origin. In my speech today, I'm going to talk to you about XYZ. So it's more organic within the speech rather than structural of you saying, this is what I'm going to do in my speech, first, second, third, not like that. And then the way how you actually go ahead and get attention is couple. Actually, you can take any of them or either of them, like that's your choice. So you can use rhetorics and hook statements. Now, rhetorics are basically like very engaging and like interesting statements. Hook statements again a very interesting statements which basically gain attention from people. Now, it could be either a powerful statement of quote, it could be a mind-blowing statistic, it could be a rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is just me asking you a question but not expecting an answer from you. Okay, so you can do either of them, but obviously these are not limited list. You can do anything that you think is going to gain attention from people. Now, it must reflect clearly as to what your topic of your speech is. So it should basically go ahead and whenever you're giving introduction, like the most important part is if I'm telling you about prison systems in India, and then I go forward about how prisons are extremely overcrowded, and then I go forward and talk about how prison conditions are extremely bad. Um, I think my topic is somewhere around the idea of um, need for reform for prisons in India. Now, if that is true, I don't necessarily have to tell what the topic is in and of itself clearly in terms of me stating it, but it should at least give me some idea as to what my topic is. So that's one thing that you need to remember. I also obviously always appreciate if people genuinely give what their topic is in one line. So your topic does not have to be the conventional traditional topic. It could just simply be like a two three word. It could just also be very informal if you want to. So like for example, there was this, and I think this is what I'm going to show you in the next session. So it's going to be, for example, it was about how oversimplification of issues in the world actually exists, and the topic that the person actually like named it was basically simply put, and you would understand. So it doesn't have to be easily understandable per se, but it should be interesting. And I think it's okay for you to use your creative freedom to actually tell like what your topic is, even if it's not clear. So that's the idea. But it should be clear by the end of your speech is what I mean, right? So it should clearly topic is like reflect what your topic is as in what is the crux of your topic. So that's what I'm saying, right? So if it is about prisons, I should at least give some introduction of what prisons, like what am I talking about. So like probably something related to prisoners, something related about rights, something about brutality, something about overcrowding, something about lack of reformation, anything or anything, but something that is related to the topic. The idea is if your topic is about jungle, don't start talking about oceans, simply put that way. So again, your introduction should be concise. That means I don't want you to go over your introduction for like 1 minute. I think if your speech is for 3 minutes, I think 30 seconds is a good mark to keep for your introduction. If there is there any question on introduction then? Moving forward. Context. There are again two aims. One is to remember when I told you that you have an ocean of full of topics and you have to choose one? I think you also need to justify as to why you chose that topic to in the first place. So why that particular thing interested you more than the other things? Now, obviously, not to say that in your speech you're going to mention as to the reason as to why I chose this topic is XYZ, but to tell as to why this topic matters is something that you need to do in your context. The next thing is to actually give background of the research. So what background of the research means is, let's say, if my topic is again bad conditions of prison, the context of it could simply be um, the growing custodial deaths in India. So custodial deaths is whenever prisoners actually die in custody. Now, it could be related to a current affair that's happening, and I'm basically giving that this is what is happening right now, which is why this is a relevant issue, which is why I've taken this topic. So I'm not going to say exactly the terms of like this is why I have taken this topic, but it makes sense to the judges and whoever is listening that, oh, this is probably why this person has chosen this topic. So you'd give background of the issue. You would explain to the basic ideas that you would prefer to through like that you would refer to throughout your speeches, which means, for example, if you're talking about reformation, I would want you to basically explain what reformation is. If you're talking about brutality, you need to tell me as to what brutality you mean, and so on and so forth. But then next is you need to connect it to the current events. Absolutely love it when people exactly quote like in like dates and like newspaper articles which show a particular thing. For example, according to the Times of India, XYZ number of people die in prison every year. Now this is very interesting to me for to listen, but also it's setting up context for me, right? So you're also like telling that it's a very current issue, like something that happened very recently and stuff like that, and then you're going go ahead and give some personal relevance if you want to. Now, in context, when you give personal relevance, it could be someone you knew or some a story that you came across, something that has personal touch with it. The next thing that you need to do is also like I think this is not like in order of what you need to do. It's in order of what you can do to set up context. Now, you can also highlight relevant timelines and statistics, for example, from 2021 to 2011 to 2021, this is what happened. But and this has been the evolution with respect to this particular area. So if you want to do that, you can do that as well. You can also explain as to why the problem was identified in the first place. Oftentimes, you are the one who identified the problem. For others, probably that problem does not exist, which I was telling you yesterday. People don't understand that the problem exists until the problem actually affects them. So you need to tell them that, like, even if you're not the stakeholder of the problem per se, you're still affected because you're part of society and you need to care about it because we're living in a welfare state and stuff like that. So you can something that you can do as well. Again, a brief preview could simply be you as to what you're going to do. So in your introduction or in your context or in the transition of your introduction to the context, what you can do is tell as to in my speech today, I'm going to tell you about why people do XYZ, the issues related to it, and thereby the challenges and how we can solve it. So this is something that you do as well. Moving forward to the body. Now, as I said, body is very similar to your arguments in debates. Now, argument could be and the reason as to why you're arguing is because you're arguing with yourself and with the audience actually, to the point at which you're saying that the reason as to why this topic is important, argument is this topic is important, as opposed to the other topics that other people probably would have taken, is this. So, for example, and I'm probably going to give you this example once I reveal the motion to you. So your idea is to tell that out of XYZ topics that existed, this is a topic of relevance because of these reasons. And if your understanding is the opposite, this is the reason as to why what your understanding is actually bad. So the way how you make arguments is an assertion, analysis, evidence. Now, assertion means what is the point? Analysis, how do you explain it? What is the explanation to it? It could be logical, it could be analytical, anything for that matter. Then you have evidence, which is statistics and studies or examples, illustrations, etc. Now, what you need to remember here is that this is not the correct order I mean, there is no correct order for you to actually give your speech in terms of arguments. It's not always supposed to start with assertion, then followed by analysis, and then evidence. This only happens in debates. In original oratory, you could probably start with the example and then proceed with analysis and then tell us to what you meant and what was your point, right? So you can use your creative freedom and then switch the order if you want to, whatever you think is basically making more sense for your speech. Now, in your speech, you're also like, you're just not making an argument, but you're also going ahead and considering the counter arguments of your opponent. So what could others actually say, and why does it not matter, or why is it less important? So the way how you would frame it in your speech is going to be, some might argue that there are bigger issues than backlog of cases in courts. However, um, I believe XYZ. So you acknowledge the fact that some people probably would think that, in courts there could be more bigger issues. For example, access to free legal aid and so on and so forth. So if there could be other issues that could also exist, which you also acknowledge, the reason as to why this is the bigger issue is XYZ. So you acknowledge the opponents, you then go ahead and explain as to why still your point matters more. Is there any question for this one then? Okay, moving forward. Anecdotes. Now, what are anecdotes? Anecdotes are personal story which are used to connect with the audience. So you are basically, or you what you can do here is you can tell a story. For example, Hari was imprisoned for 10 years, and therefore, and after that, he was sent to open prisons, which is where he got the ability to work as a carpenter. He was able to earn 700 rupees per month, which is how he started like earning a livelihood for his family. His family started respecting him again. He started getting the love of his family again, which means open prisons ended up helping Hari as an individual to get reintegrated in the society. So this is a personal this is not a personal explanation of me, but it's a story of a personal individual, and you basically gave us this story to the audience, and this made audience understand as to why reformation can actually happen, right? Now your personal story has to be short. Now my Hari story was for 4 lines. If you want, you can keep it this much, or you can keep it shorter. The idea is you should be able to let people understand what the story is, picturize it a little bit, because I know if I tell you that, what, you should make the story so like you should let the audience actually picturize the story completely, then I know what will end up happening. You'll probably um give a lot more explanation which is not needed. You need to save time as well. So don't over explain is what I'm saying. Now, this story could have any tone. It could be serious, heartfelt, humorous, emotional. Any tone can be used. It could be based on what your general tone of your speech is, or if you want to break that monotony, you can also use a different tone of personal story. Now, this personal story could also be, one day I was going to a garden and then this happened to me. So it could also be about you. Or you could just lie about what happened to you. So just because you want to, create that extra personal touch. Are there any doubts? You can use anecdotes in your introduction. You can use anecdotes as context. You can use anecdotes as body as well. Depends how you use it and what kind of anecdote you're using. Any doubts? If not, moving forward to the conclusion. Now, conclusion is a recap. So what did you do in your speech? Summarization of main points and give a memorable closing thought. Closing thought is something as to, I told you this is an issue. How do you think you're going to solve it type? So something that basically makes people understand as to, there's a need of you to think about this issue, and something that makes people understand that, you just, they just did not hear an inspiring speech, but they're also supposed to act after it, right? So, for example, if you were to choose between dying immediately or suffering for years, what would you prefer? So, you're making the audience think. Now, can anyone tell me what's the relevance of this sentence? So I have given you example of backlog of cases way too much. Backlog of cases basically delays justice to a large extent. The idea here is that, what you're basically making these people, yeah, Nora.
Yeah, so I was wondering, should we follow like the NSDA one, the format which has like a lot of humor and over dramaticness? Because in the
Yeah.
last qualifiers, I saw that most of the people just saw in like a debate format, and like most of them just qualified, while the people who did NSDA didn't do that much.
Yeah, so I think the issue last time could probably be also not just that humor was used, but I think you need to place humor in such a way that it's not insensitive. Specifically if you're talking about crimes, because whenever people think about crimes, they're thinking about victims, and the moment when you're trying to make any kind of humor in that, it goes in the genre of dark humor, and you don't know how people are going to respond to dark humor anyways, which is why if you're using humor, and I think this is specifically problematic for this theme. So if you use humor, I love humor. Like I could just simply say I love humor, but I think the placement of humor should be in such a way that it isn't insensitive, and it should probably cater to larger audience, which is how judges perceive it. Because I think it's easier for judges to actually take offense on things like you making humorous statement about a person not getting reformed and stuff like that. So yes, humor is good, and humor is appreciated in original oratory, but place it well, thinking about the theme. In original oratory NSDA, you don't get a theme, which is when you have full liberty to choose anything. But here you don't, which is why it's also necessary for you to, try to um, maintain a serious tone. As in, not serious every time, but if you think the humor is actually good for the entire audience, go ahead. That's what I would say. Um, so yeah, so the relevance here is that when you delay justice, it basically delays and makes people suffer more, as opposed to a person individually and immediately dying. That's what the relevance was. Now, closing statement is a closing remark. What is the final call of action? What do you want people to do? For example, if the video that I'm going to show you next day. In that video, if the issue that he identifies is oversimplification of issues, and the closing remark is what he says is, like, simply put, you need to not actually put things simply. So it was a very subtle ending, but he tried to finally tell people that all of these issues, but this is one thing that you need to not do or do. So it could be an act, or it could be an omission that you're actually asking people to do. That's the closing statement. Now, what's the judging criteria? Three things again: matter, manner, method. Research, statistics, relevance to the topic, creativity, originality, analysis, and content is your research. Manner is delivery, engagement with the audience. Language, pace, articulation. Method is organization of structure, time management, transitions from one part to the other, placement, and overall impact on the audience. This is how your method. This is where people lose most marks for time management, because that's the worst. Like, that's, I think, the worst thing that people actually do in speeches, because you're so. And I think that was an issue with me as well. I wouldn't stop until the bell starts ringing like thrice. But I mean, you need to also recognize that you need to stop at one point. So, uh, yeah, that's that. Now, I'm gonna release the motions. Now, I want to tell you one thing. I wanted to change the motion from the previous time. However, the reason as to why I did not change the motions from the 13th of qualifiers is because I wanted to test this motion with this set of people as well. And then after people qualify, I'm going to change the motions for everyone. So the motions are same from 13th January. It's for junior category. The sub-theme is striving for justice in every sphere of life, a call for action, which means justice is seen not just in courtrooms, but also in different arenas of life. For example, at home, justice could simply mean like equal respect and understanding. For example, the way how your parents treat each other, the way how your parents treat the kids, the way how your father treats your mother and his mother. So this could be also one of the ways. The next could also be in workspaces, like how people treat each other in terms of promotions, in terms of giving opportunities, in terms of opportunities of leadership. In communities, it could be about social cohesions and addressing inequalities. So justice is seen every single place, and I want you to understand what justice is and how do you embrace the idea of justice in small spheres. So this is not just a legal concept; it's a concept that individuals inherently were born with, and therefore, why and how do you think individual can promote fairness in society? So your topic is, what can an individual do to promote fairness in society? You can identify one thing that an individual could do that's not related to law, that's not related to implementation of a particular law, that's not related to courts, but something that on an individual level, what can we do? Because who can implement law? Implementation of law could be probably by legislature or like executive, right? But that's not something on the personal level you could do. Something that you do on personal level is what you need to identify and give a speech on. This is the topic for junior category. Are there any questions from junior category? So third, fourth, fifth standard, any questions? Okay. Moving
Excuse me?
forward to the, yeah, okay, yeah.
Like we have to find the topic from the prompt, or like this is the topic, what can an individual do to promote?
This is the topic. What can an individual? Prompt is just a hint for you, like what could. So, for example, there are three different arenas, right? Like workplace, family. So, if you want to take one of these, you can. But I think if you want to go out of it and probably think about a different relationship where we can have better justice, then you can do that as well. Prompt is just hint for you to find something. Okay. Then junior category, middle category. It's rethinking punishment paradigms, shaping a crime-free society. Now there are different theories of punishment, which is rehabilitation, retribution, deterrence, restoration, etc. Now, each theory tries to obviously solve the idea that we need to reduce crimes in society. So the topic for you is, which theory of punishment shall be opted for by Indian criminal justice system? Now, I want you to give this particular advice here, that your topic is not just to say that, hey, I think rehabilitation theory should be implemented, but your idea is to also say why other theories should not be implemented. Remember when I said it's not just argument, it's also counter arguments, and why you think restorative or let's say deterrence theory does not work the same way. That's about the middle category. Any doubts, any questions? So read about all of the kinds of theories, find out which one you think is suitable for Indian criminal justice system. Yeah. Next, yeah, Vachi.
What is the meaning of paradigm?
What is the meaning of paradigm?
Yes.
So paradigm is a kind of thinking, like when a large, like when a different, like, so for example, punishment paradigm is, there are different types of punishments, the different understandings of punishments. So if somebody says that, you know what, if somebody commits a crime, you need to actually make them suffer the exact same way. So if that is what your thinking is, you lie in the paradigm of retributive justice. So you lie in the ocean of the place where everybody believes in the same value. Paradigm is like when people have similar kinds of thinking. Okay. Senior category, legal reshaping, pioneering a transformed societal framework. The idea is that society is changing in different places: education, criminal justice system, environmentally, cybersecurity, AI, biotechnology, data privacy, etc. Now, with the change, it also demands for change in law. What could be that change, and how can we do that? So your idea is to identify one crucial need for change in a law, and then how can we reform that law? So so this is what your topic is. How can we reform law in context of changing society? Identify that one change which is basically sparking and asking for a change in law, and what this reformation should look like. Any questions from the senior category? Done. That is it for today's class. Tomorrow I'm going to show you a video of original oratory. I want you to take notes of that video, and I also want you to have and participate in the discussion that we're going to have.